All right, good evening, everyone. We called our meeting to order at our closed session. So now we can begin the public portion of our meeting. First, I'm going to ask our Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Lee McDonald, to come up and present or introduce our presenter for the special public hearing and presentation on harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
Thank you, Ms. McKeon. I'd like to introduce our new Director of Counseling, Ms. Jessica Smedley. Jessica has been with us a few short months. During that time, she has brought her nearly 15 years of experience as a Director of Counseling in multiple districts in the area. Certainly a fresh perspective, great addition to our administrative team, supporting our school counselors, supporting our school administrators, our anti-bullying specialists, when we've been collaborating much along with Dr. Gould with regards to things that we do here in WWP, and she's been able to provide some really insightful perspectives with regards to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So without further ado, Ms. Smedley, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so, hold on, yes, can you hear me okay? Okay. So I'm going to present tonight, we have a semi-annual report that we give for all of our incidents in harassment, intimidation, and bullying. It's called Reporting Period 1, and this takes us from July 2023 through December of 2023. So I just want to start, and we'll go over definition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. That'll be a review for everyone. This law has been around now for 13 years and had some amendments that you heard about last year. And so we've been sort of growing into that changes, talk a little bit about the trends that we see this year, and also just share all the proactive things and all the things that we'll be doing throughout the year to prevent incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Okay, so our definition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, this is the state definition. It comes right from code. It's also in our board policy. So any gesture, written, verbal, or physical act, or electronic communication, whether that be a single incident or a series of incidents. It needs to be reasonably perceived as being motivated by either an actual or perceived characteristic. We'll go over what some of those characteristics are later in the presentation. That it takes place on school property, at any school-sponsored function, or on a school bus, or off school grounds, or online. That includes online. And that it substantially disrupts or interferes with the orderly operation of the school or the rights of other students. And then last year, during Dr. Gould's presentation, you heard about the amendments to the bill. There were several that were enacted, and one thing that has changed for us for this year, the state updated their own form, affectionately known as the Form 338 or the 338 form. It's that is required that all school districts use the same reporting form. There are two different versions, one for parents, caregivers, anyone who's not students, bystanders, anyone who is not considered LEA or school district staff, and then a separate form for staff. So the initial rollout of that state form last year actually had an error on it. And so we made the state corrected that for this July. Originally they had it so that staff could report anonymously. However, the law was passed that no staff member can report anonymously. So minor change, but they gave us a new form. So that looks a little bit different than it did last year on our website, and have everything under the anti-bullying section of our website. And then the board amended policy 5512 in August of 2023 to allow for the use of preliminary determination. So that's our significant change for this year. So what is preliminary determination? This is right from the policy. Prior to initiating investigation regarding a reported incident or complaint, the principal or designee, in consultation with the anti-bullying specialist, shall make a preliminary determination as to whether a reported incident or complaint, assuming all facts are presented are true, is a report within the scope of NJSA 18A 3714. So what does that actually mean? That we can that there are sometimes, prior to having the preliminary determination available to us, anytime there was any mention of anything that used the words bullying, harassment, and intimidation, which we know is difficult at certain developmental ages, that there are times when there's student conflict, and yet we were a little bit bound by that. So the preliminary determination has allowed us to take a look at something. If a 5-year-old says, I was getting bullied, what does that actually mean? What can we talk to? It's allowed us to have productive conversations, also to talk with caregivers. We've noticed, and it has been the case, that occasionally parents just want to talk to us about something that's going on with their child or children in school, but don't necessarily want to report it as a potential act of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We know as staff members we're obligated to investigate anything that we believe is a potential act of HIB, and we are all mandated reporters. So, but it just allows for a little bit of space to have a conversation and talk collaboratively. So this always goes on between the principal, the assistant principal, and the anti-bullying specialist. So when any report or any Form 338 comes in, we can take a look and see like what's being reported, what questions do we have, talk through it. And in most cases we've had this year, we have still continued to do the HIB investigation, but we have had a few, and I'll go through those numbers of that we have done the preliminary determination. So we have had 14 total preliminary determinations that we've done this in reporting period 1, primarily at the elementary school level. And I think that, again, when you look and you read these reports, it's typically that it's an incident that happens on the school bus or in the hallway, and it's something that was either an accident or really an opportunity to talk about, is this conflict? Is this students who are still learning how to be good friends and learning the skills for living? And so unsurprising that we would see that at the elementary level, but usually also sometimes it's who's doing the reporting. How does the form come in? So that's, I think, been a really productive piece for us to have meaningful conversations and also enough space to do education for particularly our younger students around what is bullying, what does this law mean. This is a difficult law for professionals who have worked in the field for a long time to sort of ascertain what's happening here. We do an investigation, we're thorough. So you can imagine the younger the student is, the more difficult it is for them to really wrap their head around what is HIB bullying and what does pure conflict look like? What does it look like in different environments? Okay, so total HIB investigations in this reporting period 1, we've had 83 total investigations. Of that, 50 were founded or confirmed to be acts of harassment, intimidation, or bullying, and 33 were found to be unfounded. So just about a 60-40 split. And I do want to say, too, that in having these, just because we see founded or unfounded doesn't necessarily mean we still have code of conduct issues that come out of both founded and unfounded. So it can be that it's an unfounded, this doesn't represent there was no action on the unfounded, it was just not founded to meet the criteria of those 3 prongs and requirements for it to be considered an active HIB, but we have options for restorative conversations. Again, if there's code of conduct violations, that's being done differently, and that's reported out through the SS, the safety and data system. So just want to keep that in mind. Where there's also a lot of times for remediation measures, we have opportunity for peer mediation, for restorative conversations, for parent-teacher conferences, engagement with school counselors and student assistance counselors. So these are just total investigations. Okay, then we have total investigations by grade band. I think this is it's interesting to take a look at this, and this is because I think in my experience, and from what I remember, I was here for Dr. McDonald and Dr. Gould's presentation over the summer for reporting period 2, because it was the night that I got approved by the board. And so, and I think it's typical in my experience that we we tend to see the highest number of HIB investigations in the middle grades. And that is really, I think, that is a statewide statistic. I would say it's probably a nationwide statistic, because because of the developmental age, all the things that are happening in middle school, their vocabulary and their gets a little bit more sophisticated, and so they're saying more than perhaps they were in elementary. And this year, at least in reporting period 1, we are seeing the highest number of 45.8% in grades pre-K through 5. And I think when we get to who's reporting and where is it happening, there's a little bit interesting trend to see there. But we're at 16.9, so almost 17% in grades 9 through 12. 37.3% in the middle grades, and then 45.8 in grades K through 5. So then we always take a look at, and this is something that we look at as the anti-bullying team, which comprises all the specialists, the administrators, and myself, of where are things happening. Again, we have a chart here, and you'll see that there's mostly places that have unstructured time. That's what so we're always looking to address, like, how do we sort of work with students, again, proactively on building relationships, making connections. We know that when students it's a lot harder to be mean to someone, or you're less likely to be mean to someone when you have a relationship with them, when we create that culture of climate and caring. So again, the bulk of these are more unstructured time. The internet, cell phone is up slightly over last year. Some of that, I think, could be looked at as the few incidents that we had in the summertime when school is not in session. If you get a report, it's more likely to have happened. We're not in school. So that can be a difference for reporting period 1 versus 2. Unsurprising on the lunchroom and the playground. But we also see an uptick in the number of classroom incidents. And I would say that is directly tied in terms of a trend to making sure that our teachers know how to recognize this. We're having more teachers, classroom teachers, report when they see something, which is great. That tells me that we're seeing that our training is working, that the staff understand that they are to report any suspected incident, and in other words, they don't necessarily need to do anything other than give the report. So then get these other people involved, get the anti-bullying specialist involved, and make sure that the administration knows, so we can be handling that. Teachers handle so much in the classroom with classroom climate and culture, and I think it's important that when they need support from the rest of us, that's available to them. Okay. Then we have, for the founded incidents of HIB, what were the distinguishing characteristics? In the lead here were race, ethnicity, and appearance, with appearance being the highest number. Taking a look at our reports, that is by and large size, so like fat shaming, although there are several other things in there, name calling type things. But again, found to be pervasive enough. And it can also be appearance and even race and ethnicity. Any of these, we just remember it's real or perceived. So sometimes it's not necessarily known, but they could be perceiving that there's a difference, and it's based in that. So again, these are trends and statistics that we look at as the anti-bullying team to look at what do we need to do, how can we build more work into our culture and climate teams so that we can have safe and supportive environments for all of our students. So we are down in our total number of investigations from last year's first reporting period to this year's. We had a total of 120 incidents last year in reporting period 1 versus our 83 this year. So I think that speaks to, we know that we saw a dramatic increase statewide in the number of HIB incidents come up steeply as we came back from the pandemic. When we had our hybrid years, almost all schools had hybrid type environments, they dipped down and then it shot back up again as we came back to those first couple of years coming back to school, and really just reorienting students to being around each other, going back. Remember, many of our learners in the early grades didn't start school until they were in first or second grade. So they lost some of that foundational time to learn, again, like building climate and culture. That's obviously very hard to do. And even being around other kids, like learning how to play. We had 2.5-ish years of not sharing, not playing together, and so we have to teach those. It took us time to get everyone caught up and get ourselves all back in the groove of what it means to be community together. Like I said, the preliminary determination has really resulted. The feedback from our administrators, our staff, our anti-bullying specialists, is that it really has sort of shifted from being afraid of missing anything and just being hypersensitive to, as soon as someone says there's any of those words, we're jumping on it, to really like taking at least a breath, maybe not even a step back, but a breath, to talk to each other, to be able to talk through what's going on here. Let's gather more information and even have a cohesive way of looking at it. Who, in terms of like the administration and the anti-bullying specialists, who do you want to talk to in this? How are we going to investigate it? Because preliminary determination never means that we're not going to deal with the issue at hand that's being reported. It really just means that we take a more comprehensive look at it. Is this something that should be handled through code of conduct? Is this a conversation that a school counselor could help lead a peer mediation? Do we need to talk to the teacher about what's happening, the classroom teacher, about what's happening in the classroom? What's already the climate and culture in your classroom? What does it look like in the school, to be able to proactively address not only this concern, but take a look at, do we have problems anywhere else that haven't been reported that is sort of trending? So I think that's really opened up a lot of good conversation. And I also think that focusing on the training, all of our staff gets trained annually. The anti-bullying specialists and I have been meeting since November. It's one thing that I thought was really helpful, really for calibration purposes, and making this change to even have the preliminary determination was a pretty big shift in mindset after so many years of having that we weren't doing that. And so I think it's helpful. We meet on a monthly basis with the Dr. McDonald, and I have met with the assistant principals about it, and then I've also met with the anti-bullying specialists on a monthly basis we go over everyone's data. So taking a look at what are we seeing school to school. It can be easy to get sort of siloed in your one school that you work in. So we also talk about how to conduct investigations. We've come up with interview protocols to try to, again, calibrate what are you doing? What kinds of questions do you ask? How do we record this? All of those things. And that's also included leveraging our software. And I also think the availability of having, again, we use a third-party software, Hipster, to help us maintain all of this. It helps us, it has good reporting features, so we're able to look at those trends much easier because it's on the tool, we're using the tools that are at our fingertips. And I said this, race and ethnicity and appearance were the two most prevalent ones. We are going, actually, the focus of our next anti-bullying specialist meeting will be looking at this data and digging in at the school level. So switching back really, now that we have this data collected and it's presented to all of you, the next step will be the school anti-bullying specialist will run a culture and climate team meeting at each school level or each school building to see with various stakeholders to look at the data of the school in more depth. So obviously we switched through the proactive, and we have a lot of proactive approaches to bullying prevention. We want to, and that focuses, I think, so much on culture and climate. At the district level, we have our strategic goals and social justice standards. We have an SEL strategic goal that work is ongoing. Certainly our school counseling department, which I would, part of me wishes that I could stand up here for another 45 minutes to tell you about all the good work that our school counselors do, but that could be its own presentation sometime in the future. We have mental health resources for our students. So I would say actually probably every single resolution, whether founded or unfounded, there's always at least an offer, but we really try to engage students with their school counselor and/or their student assistance counselor after an incident happens. And just for processing purposes, for learning purposes, again, like this it happened, it was either founded or unfounded, but whether you're the offender or the victim, and sometimes even witnesses, need some wraparound about what happened and what are we doing. So we certainly use our staff to do that. And I would say the two things, you can't really see on the slide here, but I bolded the two areas that I think are really important, which is our culture and climate teams. So again, those are multidisciplinary teams. We do include students on those teams to be able to give us feedback. We use student surveys that the culture and climate teams take a look at to see what are the trends, what are students saying, like what are the students' perceptions of what's going on. And that helps us build proactive programming. We also do a lot of professional development and training for staff. We have to keep this on everyone's radar. It's important that as school year goes on, there's lots of, even coming back to school, there's lots of things we have to refresh and do, and we always make sure to do that. It's the focus of faculty meetings. It's talked about in team meetings, grade level meetings, and then certainly some more specialized training, ongoing collaborative work with our teams, with the anti-bullying specialists and administrators, just to make sure that we're having consistency and clarity in our practices. And finally, we make sure we always train our students. Like, again, it starts with see something, say something, how to make a report, what to happen, talking about being a good upstander, right? We talk about coming forward. If someone I think we've trained our students to know that well. We see that certainly on the mental health and counseling side of things. We rely on students to help their friends. We teach them how to reach out if you see someone is being hurt, or if you are, how to stand up for yourself and come and report to someone who's safe so that we can help you, when to reach out for help. And then finally on here too, which we're always very thankful for, is there are various partnerships with our PTSAs to run assembly programs, bring in speakers, and have proactive programming for students, again, focused on protective factors. We know that students who have a higher number of protective factors are much less likely to suffer from any kind of mental health challenges, and also recover from challenging situations better when they have that support and have that they know how to get to the help that they need in school. Okay, and I'm just going to end with our district mission about this. So WWP is committed to providing all students with a safe learning environment that is free from harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And we do that. We adhere to the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, or the law. We talked about training. The proactive measures are certainly, I think, can't be understated. That is what our focus is, because we know that we are committed to having a safe and healthy learning environment for all students, and that we want to really create a positive school community. So with that, I can take questions if anyone has.
Pooja?
Thank you so much for that presentation. Could you talk a little bit about once a incident is founded and concluded, what happens in terms of the student's record, or who sees the founded incident?
Sure. So one of the amendments to the law, the 2022 amendments, changed. So prior to those amendments, the record was completely separate. So now with the law change, it is a part of a student's record, but it's not necessarily viewable to anyone. So to be completely honest, unless Dr. Adderhold, you know differently, or Dr. McDonald, the state hasn't quite has stopped short of giving us guidance on exactly what to do with those records. So they are kept in a database. I can tell you on the side of things like college admissions and what we do there, no one's asking about them. But I feel like we have to lean into that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
This is a common, Doc, thank you. This is a common question that does come up because with the January 2022 amendment, it did note that the results have to be kept in the student's permanent folder, but it does not go into detail as to what goes in. And so we've kind of been waiting for some guidance from the state. That has not been forthcoming at all, so we are kind of proceeding as everyone is kind of proceeding as best they can. What that did do was there used to be districts could work with parents, say, for example, a student got an HIB in first grade, if there were no other issues in elementary school, that could have been purged. That is gone. That discretion's gone. That much is clear. But in terms of what exact documentation is viewed by other people, there's no guidance.
Right.
And also, to be clear, we do have this conversation with parents. I apologize. The West Windsor-Plainsboro School District does not forward discipline records to post-secondary institutions. So, that is a very common fear that parents have, not just in this district, but in other districts across the state, that if there isn't founded HIB against a student, say in elementary school, it will somehow hold or impact that child's ability to go to college or get into college when that time comes. We do not forward those records.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the board? Liz?
Thank you for the presentation as well. Can you just speak a bit about the peer mediation process and in terms of like if it's voluntary, if there's any confidentiality around it? Is there like a statement signed at the end? Like, what is that
Sure,
like?
absolutely, can talk to that. So peer mediation is always voluntary, and it's really, even the offer of a peer mediation is really at the discretion of the anti-bullying specialist, who is a counselor, and the school administration. So we would first talk about it, like, is this an appropriate situation to try to mediate? And a lot of times when something is just conflict, it can be. When we have some, like, whether the actual incident is founded to be HIB or not, I would say most of the time it would only really be the unfounded ones where you end up that at the end of the day something mean happened or someone felt hurt, was hurt, didn't meet the legal definition, but also like we want to prevent it from happening again. So I would say it's most typical. One of the things that we have to take a look at is that impact, that it significantly impacts the student or group of students or the educational environment. Particularly with younger students, what we see, that is one of the more difficult things to figure out in deciding is this founded or unfounded, because if we had a problem if there was an incident on the bus and then by lunchtime everyone's sitting together and we know they're going back on the bus and you're talking to a 5 or 6 year old, like, are you still friends? Like, kind of getting to like, how do you want to do this going forward? You're going to be on the same bus together. So can we talk about, and that may look like a mediation or it may just look like restorative conversations separately. So I would say it's very case by case, but anytime we're going to engage in that, it would absolutely be voluntary.
Thanks. Any other questions? Shweta?
Thank you. I know you mentioned the ABS often works with the culture and climate teams to do proactive measures. Could you share like what some of those measures could be or what the programming looks like?
Sure. So our culture and climate teams, it's a little bit different in each school because each school has its own kind of climate. But they work, typically there's teachers involved, there's students, there's a parent representative on that, administrators. And so that could look like coming up with, again, proactive measures. It could be, do we want to try to work with the PTSA to bring in or even budget for assembly programs? Do we want to do some kind of, something close to like positive behavior support? So having I would include something like a student of the month, something where you're catching students or you're asking students to identify other students doing the right thing. Again, so proactive measures, really planning at the school level, like individually, does that look like maybe a team? Well, this sounds like this is a double entendre, but a team building event. So is how do we get students, again, like to build relationships, make connections with one another? Do we, our culture and climate teams often look at what clubs are available, getting clubs of students together, interacting with them, what are they seeing? The surveys, certainly taking a look at what do students want to see? Starting with, do you feel safe at school? All the way up through, what would you like to see happen? And so I think there can be a lot that comes out of that, really dependent on the school.
Thanks. Dana?
Thank you for this report. It was very thorough and I appreciate it. I had a question about the two areas where you have the most, which is race and ethnicity and appearance. Are you seeing, like, you mentioned something about like fat shaming. Are you seeing like increases in certain like that, in like fat shaming or something else within those? You're seeing certain increases that you didn't see before. I know you haven't been here that long, but yeah.
Looking comparatively back to last year's first period report that Dr. Gould gave, we're right in the same place. And I would say even when you compare the kind of across the state, the trends tend to follow what's happening in our society.
Right, so you're seeing like certain things happening more, I guess, now than they might have had a year ago based on outside
I think
factors.
that it's impossible for us to be shielded from the same things that are happening outside. So just like we've seen other major socio-political events happen over the past several years, I think it's sort of in tow with that.
Thank you. Loy?
Thank you for the presentation. I remember last year's presentation, I was surprised with the K-5 number in terms of the total number of investigations, because as you mentioned earlier, usually it's sort of the middle school age group. I guess this year compared to last, do you think the preliminary determination helped bring that number down for K-5, or is it still sort of the same in terms of percentage from last year to this year, the number of total incidents reported?
I think it brought it down slightly. So we had 8 of the 14 preliminary investigations were at the K-5. So it is a slight decrease, but we're down pretty significantly overall too. So I think it's sort of like not quite an apples to apples comparison, because our overall number dropped by about 40.
Which is great, yep.
Yes.
And then just one more thing, because I am a part of a couple of parent like WhatsApp groups, and sometimes parents will come in and say, my kid got bullied on the bus or this. I just wondered if you could share some maybe advice, or if there's maybe from the parent perspective how they can go about reporting to the school, or just kind of instead of just keeping it on like in a text group, how they can go ahead and just kind of bring their concerns forward. And in terms of parent education about the HIB, is there anything that you can talk about that?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I would like to see our ABSs do as we expand out, is to educate our families, maybe work with the PTSAs to do presentations for parents. I'm happy to do those as well. So I guess advertisement, if any PTSAs would like that, we certainly. I think that it's important to continuously talk about it, because just like the kids will come in and say one word and it's the B word, and everyone gets that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. And this law is really specific. And so I think one of the things that I wish I could debunk for everyone and have everyone get this is really understand that we always want to know your concerns. Anytime you have a concern with your child, if you're concerned about someone else's child, please get in touch with us. How they do that, certainly the form is available. I always say, same thing with mental health resources. When you tell people to go to websites, it needs to be within a couple clicks. So the form is available to make a report within a couple clicks. So they just go to the anti-bullying section. It's in alphabetical order. It's right in the top bar of our website. And the form, I changed it with our communications director this morning, that we decided instead of calling it the name of the form, make it a little bit more user-friendly, and it literally now says, click here to report a potential incident of HIB. So hopefully that's one way, but I also don't want to, I mean, certainly we have these rules, we follow the law, that use the state form, but I don't want a form or a process, a legal process, to get in the way of a parent calling the school. Please call. You can email. There's counselors in every building. You can start with, you don't need to know who the anti-bullying specialist is. You can start with your child's counselor. You can always start with the teacher. A lot of parents have that well-established relationship with the teacher. So I would say to the same thing to parents that we try to say to our kids, don't sit in silence with this. Let us know, and we want to work with you, and we want to engage with people. And certainly, my information's available on there too. If nothing else, I can get you to the right person. But also happy to talk through things, and even hypothetical. So, I would, yes, if you could be our a champion for just call the principal, or call Jessica, or call the school counselor. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thanks. Do we have any other questions? Well, thank you for all the questions, and thank you, Ms. Smedley, for a really clear and comprehensive presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Now, that takes us to the special opportunity for public comment on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. The board invites thoughts and reactions on the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Seeing none, I will close this public comment portion, and we can move on to the approval of the report. So can I have a motion to approve and accept the July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023 District Semi-Annual Report of Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying as required by the New Jersey State Department of Education under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act? Lloyd and Liz, any comments or questions?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bonso.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovin.
Yes.
Ms. McKeown.
Yes. That now adjourns our special public hearing on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We can now move on to our regular agenda, and I just wanted to pause here and ask Mr. Toscano if there's anything you wanted to add to the closed executive session agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. Oops, just not that tall. In addition to the items that were noted on the agenda that was pre-printed prior to the meeting, there was 2 additional items that the board discussed. For exception number 7, the board discussed a possible ethics complaint, and the board also discussed the ESIP program.
All right, thank you, Mr. Toscano. Dr. Adderhold, do you have any comments, or are you good? All right. That takes us to the first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Seeing none, I will close this public comment period, and we can move on to our committee reports. So I'll ask Dana for the Administration and Facilities Committee.
Okay, is this on? Yeah, okay. The A&F Committee met on Tuesday, January 16th. First, Dr. McDonald provided an overview of the Administration and Facilities Committee, the committee's role and responsibilities, and highlighted frequent agenda items, including the review of the Board of Education policies and regulations, agreements and contracts, updates regarding any referenda, school safety and security, human resources, athletics, and the district's strategic plan. We next reviewed 2 policies and 1 regulation for a second reading and approval at tonight's board meeting. These are policy 5116, which is Education of Homeless Children and Youths, and its accompanying regulation, R5116, and Policy 2270, which is Religion in the Schools. There are no policies or regulations to be reviewed for a first reading tonight. The committee discussed proposed 2025-2026 academic calendars. Additional stakeholder feedback will be reviewed before approval is considered by the Board of Education. The committee then discussed the district's Class 3 officer program and shared service agreement. Referendum topics were next up on the committee's agenda as follows. Phase 2 renovations to the new main entrance, main office, and the nurses' suite are completed at the Wyckoff School. School staff have moved in and are utilizing these new spaces. Painting, floor, and ceiling installation is underway in the Town Center School Media Center. Demolition work for the media centers at Maurice Hawk and Village School continue. We next discussed athletics, including the district's engagement with community stakeholders regarding youth sports. An upcoming parent university on the benefits of youth sports will be held on Tuesday, February 13th. Spring high school sports registration opened January 17th and will close on February 26th. Middle school spring sports registration is open February 1st and closes March 8th. The district continues to update outdated language and current job descriptions. The committee reviewed descriptions for human resources manager, instructional assistant for special services, mental health clinician, and a non-certified school nurse. The committee recommends the revised job descriptions for approval at tonight's meeting. The committee approved the 2024-2025 A&F committee meeting dates as January 16th, which already happened, February 8th, March 12th, April 16th, May 21st, June 4th, July 23rd, August 13th, September 10th, October 15th, November 12th, December 3rd, and January 21, 2025. Our next meeting, as I just said, will be February 8th. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Do we have any questions? Okay, so Loy, for the curriculum committee, please.
Thank you, Graylin. The curriculum committee met on January 16th. We began with Dr. Richard Steck. He reviewed the goals, NGSS alignment, and curriculum being proposed for marine biology, a summer course, hopefully for this summer, being made available to students as an elective course for 2.5 credits. Next, Dr. Gould shared with the committee the vision for the February 2024 Professional Development Day, aimed at providing staff with engaging and relevant sessions aligned with the district's strategic goals. During the discussion, she highlighted the variety of sessions being facilitated by external presenters such as Dr. George Scott, Dr. Michael Selbest, district administration, and teacher leaders. On the agenda for voting tonight, first, the Curriculum Committee recommends approval of the Community Education Spring Summer 2024 Youth and Adult Programs, which is listed in tonight's agenda, a pretty extensive list. Next, the committee recommends approval of professional development consultants. First, Center for Counseling Services, LLC, to provide 2 one-hour trauma-informed practices professional development workshops to district staff on February 16th at a cost not to exceed $1,200. The second, the Consultant Institute for Multisensory Education to present Orton Gillingham Academy 30-hour classroom educator training to district teachers this summer at a cost not to exceed $32,400, which would be paid through ESSER with the ESSER funds. And third, Consultant Center for Responsive Schools to provide a 4-day core course training this summer to district teachers at a cost not to exceed $24,900. Next, the Curriculum Committee approves the following for 2024 summer courses. First, District Financial Literacy course at a cost of $350 per student, and upon successful completion, students will receive 2.5 credits. The next course, Introduction to Discrete Math, at a cost of $500 per student, and upon successful completion, students will receive 2.5 credits for this summer course. Next, Introduction to Data Science, Again, it costs about $500 per student, and upon completion, students will receive 2.5 credits. Followed by discrete math, part 2, for the summer at $500 per student, and upon successful completion, students will receive 2.5 credits. And the last one is a district marine biology course at a cost of $500 per student, and again, 2.5 credits for students who successfully complete the course. Next, the curriculum committee recommends approval of 2024 financial literacy course to approve Apex Learning to provide an online platform to host the financial literacy summer course at a cost not to exceed $125 per student. Next, with field trips. On the agenda for High School North, Junior Statesmen of America Winter Conference in D.C. from February 16th through the 18th. The cost of the trip is approximately $415 per student. And then the curriculum committee recommends, approval for tuition agreement, enter into agreement with Edmentum for one high school student to attend Ed Options Academy Standard virtually from January 22nd through January 30th of this year at a cost not to exceed $400. And last but not least, the curriculum committee recommends approval for our committee dates, which are listed in tonight's agenda. And then committee will next meet on February 13th. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Loy. Are there any questions? Okay, so we can move on to Shweta for the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee met on January 16th. The committee reviewed agenda items for tonight's meeting, including reviewing the financial reports for the month, and administration certified that there are funds to complete the year. Administration has submitted a grant application to the New Jersey Department of Agriculture in the amount of $81,959 for new kitchen equipment. There is a mutual release agreement with the Bennett Construction Company to complete the community middle school project. There are motions on the agenda to approve a purchase using capital reserve for additional furniture for the Maurice Hawk Library project, a credit to capital reserve for the Wyckoff HVAC project, cooperative and state contract purchases for furniture for 72 Grover's Mill Road, and a cooperative purchase for a new hot water heater at Millstone River. Additional motions for approval include the disposal of obsolete equipment, additional transportation routes, and staff professional development travel. Staff provided updates on construction projects, which Dana already reviewed, but I will add that under non-referendum capital projects, bids have been advertised for the Wyckoff Gym Floor Moisture Remediation Project and the Community Middle School Radio Enhancement Project. At 72 Grover's Mill Road, fixtures, classroom furnishings, and equipment have been ordered. The committee shared that the district will have 117 solar renewable energy credits to sell on February 14th. Staff also provided updates on cafeteria operations. Breakfast and lunch counts are starting to approach pre-pandemic numbers. This comparison is important because the high schools have gone back to a unit lunch, which affects the numbers. Lunches served in December 2019 were 40,929, and in December 2023, the number was 37,647, with one more serving day. Breakfast numbers in December 2019 were 719 meals served in grades 6 through 12. The number of breakfasts served in December 2023 was 2,405 served in grades K through 12. The number of free meals are 12%. The number of reduced meals are up 30%. Breakfast served in the elementary schools during the month of December increased by 104 per day. Of all the breakfasts served, K through 5, 76% went to students that qualified for free or reduced meals. We're still receiving delivery and installation of equipment from 2 previous New Jersey Department of Agriculture grants. New milk coolers are arriving, as well additional lunchroom tables. We have spent $342K of the $412K of the supply chain assistance funds. The committee received an updated budget calendar, and administration has been meeting to discuss the 24-25 budget. The committee reviewed that there are quotes for transportation of regular and special education students, and the committee also reviewed potential committee meeting dates for 2024. The committee is scheduled to meet next on Tuesday, February 13th.
Thanks, Shweta. Any questions? Okay, so that takes us to the voting portion of our meeting. Can I have a motion for administration items 1 through 6 plus the pink addendum? Liz and Robin, any questions or comments? Okay,
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Chenier.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty. Ms. Ovitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes. Now on to curriculum and instruction. Can I have a motion for curriculum and instruction items numbers 1 through 5? Pooja and Loy, any questions or comments?
We'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Ovitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Chenier.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes. Moving on to finance, can I get a motion for finance items numbers 1 through 18 with note that there was, the bullets were misnumbered, so we do have 2 number 4s, plus we have the blue and orange addenda. Shweta and Louisa, any questions or comments?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes, but I abstained from C, 1A, and B.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Dovich.
Yes, but I also abstained from C, 1A and B.
All right. Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Chenier.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes. Moving on, can I have a motion for personnel items numbers 1 through 4, plus the green and yellow addenda? Dana and Pooja, any questions or comments?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Ovitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Chenier.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes. And before we move on, I do want to acknowledge a few retirees that we approved on the agenda. I want to extend congratulations to Karen Baim, special education teacher at CMS, Brenda Frauenfelker from Wyckoff, who was a reading recovery teacher, and from Millstone River, we have Lauren Gallagher as a special education teacher, and from Maurice Hawk, we have Sunita Furwani. After several years in the industry and in the district, we thank you for your service to WWP, and warm congratulations on an exciting retirement ahead. And now we can move on to the approval of the Board of Education minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for December and the beginning of January? Robin and Shweta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I abstain for the January 2nd.
Do we have any board liaison reports? Dana.
Good evening again. I just wanted to let my fellow board members know, as I'm the liaison to the New Jersey School Boards Association and also the Mercer County NJSBA Vice President. I'm excited to share that our next Mercer County School Board Association meeting will be next Thursday, February 1st at 6:30 p.m., and it's virtual. The topic is school finance, what board members should know about current school finance, and our very own Dr. Russo will be one of the business administrators on the panel with several other Mercer County business administrators, and I hope that you can all join me at this meeting. Thanks.
Thanks, Dana, for sharing. Do we have any other liaison reports? All right, cool. Any new business? That takes us to the second opportunity for public comments. The board invites comments from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Seeing none, I will close this public comment period and move to adjournment. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Louisa and Robin? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night.